Hey guys, Matt from Evolve Fitness here. Now, just a super quick video on a subject that I've never touched on before, and this is muscle memory. This is something that I'm kind of going through right now because I got bacterial infection in my elbow, so I can't do any training for the last month because my body needs that energy to repair itself. I still can't get any flexion or extension. I was just talking to someone at the gym about atrophy, which is where the muscle deteriorates because it's not being stimulated, which is something that I'm obviously experiencing right now, but I'm not worried about it. And I want to tell you the science behind it and the reasons why I'm not. And if you've trained before and got a decent amount of muscularity before, how you can get back to where you were and surpass yourself quicker than you can believe. So I'm going to use this board just behind me now, and just to give you the science behind it. So if you have your normal muscle, which is right here, what you have is something called myonuclei. Now myonuclei, they live in the muscle fibers like this, and what they do is they synthesize protein. So when you have damaged muscle fiber, the myonuclei synthesize the protein into the muscle so that it can expand these muscle fibers bigger and thicker, thus making a bigger muscle like that. Okay, so over time, when you have a trained individual, they have larger muscles, but what happens within this time, you have something called satellite cells. Now what satellite cells do, we'll get rid of these. What satellite cells do is they're cells that have myonuclei themselves. They get signaled to an area that's had trauma, and that trauma being from the result of training. What it does is it attaches and fuses to the muscle and donates its nuclei into the fiber. So after training for a prolonged amount of time, you end up with more myonuclei within a muscle fiber. So if you've trained for quite some time, not only have you got bigger muscle, you have a lot more myonuclei. So I'll put these in here. So here's someone right here with a lot bigger muscle, but a lot more myonuclei. The more myonuclei you have, the more protein you can synthesize into the muscle. So we have those two examples, but now in a detrained individual, so you've got a trained person just up here. So now if you go to detrained, you've got this person here who their muscle has gone through atrophy because they haven't stimulated it, so therefore the body realizes I don't need to be running this muscle fiber, so it starts to use it as fuel and breaks it down. But the cool thing about it is even though that muscle fiber has broken down, you keep the myonuclei. So it might be a smaller, if not the same muscle as what you had, so someone who has an injury, or someone that maybe has had children and come away from training and prioritized something else. They've come away for maybe 2 to 3 years, their muscles have shrunk back down, and now they're thinking of the good old days when they had larger muscles and a better physique. But this myonuclei has stayed here from your time in training. So when you return back to training, you will synthesize protein at a much higher rate than you did originally. So that's why you get back to it, and that's what's commonly known as muscle memory. So a good way of thinking of it is, imagine you had like a polar bear, and a polar bear is big, it's powerful, and it hunts, and then it goes into hibernation. During hibernation, it feeds off fat, it feeds off the muscle, it goes through muscle atrophy. So when it comes out of hibernation, it's a very much more of a skinnier being, less powerful than before it went into hibernation. But now, once it's had a good few amount of meals and a bit of stimulus through training, well not training, but through hunting, it will very quickly return back to that powerful beast it was before. So this is it in sort of a Mother Nature version of why we keep the nuclei, so that we can return back to that status that we needed to be efficient in our environment. So that is why I'm not too bothered right now, and I'm just going to rehabilitate my arm until I get to the point where I can return to training, then progressively overload. But the great thing about it is as well, is right now, if you've had time away from your training, just as how I am right now, you become resensitized. Now imagine if you've never had a coffee before, you drink a cup of coffee and you get that kind of buzzy head. And then before you know it, you have 2 coffee, 3 coffee, and you end up like a 5-day coffee a day person that has one and goes to sleep and they're fine. If you take that person away from coffee and then return them back to it, they get a buzzy head off the first one again because they become desensitized to it like our whole body does. And then once you've taken some time off, you resensitize, so now you have a better effect from that stimulus. Same with training. If you've been training for a long time and you can become desensitized, so you increase your volume, you increase your intensity to a point where you can't really increase anywhere from where you are now, it's actually a good idea to have some time off. You can have up to 3 weeks without getting any atrophy. Even if you had more, you went on holiday, when you return back, your body is a lot more sensitive and will actually adapt to stimulus a lot faster because you're resensitized to training. So although it's frustrating if you have an injury like I have now, do what you've got to do to rehabilitate it, because when you come back, A, you'll get there faster, and B, you're resensitized, so in the long run, A, you'll get a lot more progression, but also from a psychological standpoint, you're ready to go for it again. So if this is you and you haven't trained in a while, let's get back into it and see if you can progress yourself further than you ever have before.